Welcome to the PAVE Podcast. Join us as we explore innovative biblical strategies and revolutionary tools to empower you to be a catalyst for church growth. Be inspired by church growth practitioners who are expanding God's kingdom in their communities and around the world. Now here's your host, Jonathan L. Smith.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the PAVE Podcast, where we help pastors create new paths for church growth. I'm Jonathan Smith, the Director of Church Health and Growth with Texas Baptist, also known as the Baptist General Convention of Texas. The PAVE Podcast is made possible by your gifts to the cooperative program at Texas Baptist and also by your gifts to the Mary Hill Davis offering. Today, I am joined by my good friend, Sam Rayner. Sam is the president of Church Answers. He is the lead pastor of West Bradenton Baptist Church in Bradenton, Florida, and he is the author of Church Revitalization Checklist. Sam, thanks for joining us on the PAVE Podcast today.
It is an honor to be on the show with you, even though you're an Astros fan.
Well, let's not get into that, man. I don't want to fight to break out like on this podcast. That would not be good. Now, Sam, maybe like 10 days ago, you ran a double marathon in one day. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm a marathon runner who has adopted this crazy habit of running ultra marathons. And this particular ultra was a 53 miler. So yeah, it's basically two back-to-back marathons. But not only that, it was a trail run. So it's an adventure run.
Oh, wow.
Most people are like, at this point, they don't care. They've tuned out of the podcast if I start talking about trail running. But for those who are in the know, there was miles of it in a swamp. It's self-navigation. It's, your pace is, it's twice as slow than you would on a road race. So
but
yeah,
that was all in one day.
Yeah, 53 miles in one day. I ran it in 11 hours.
Did you walk the next day? How does that work?
Yeah, I preached. I got up and preached 3 services.
You are a wild man. So they talk about the wall. In a regular marathon, the wall is at 20. So tell us about the walls in this 53.
Yeah, it's called the pain cave more than anything else. Like you just have to mentally prepare for your body to say, I'm done, and you have to push through it. And training, you can't just go out and run this amount of miles on the trail. You do need to train. It's very dangerous to not train for the race and then go do it. So your training kicks in, your nutrition kicks in. There's some things that you can do to keep going, but it's 90% mental. That old cliche is true. It's just, your legs will keep moving, but you just got to tell your brain, one step at a time. And that's the hardest part. And this is a good principle for revitalization, because the difference between a road race and a trail race is, on the trail, you are literally thinking about every single step. There's so many obstacles, so many things that you're looking for. There's roots, and in my case, swamps, and all sorts of stuff. And it's very similar to navigating a revitalization. You can't just go cruise control and just start plodding forward. You've got to really think about every step that you're taking. And that is certainly how revitalizations work too. And I would say that revitalizations are even more exhausting than an ultra marathon.
Well, I've not run a ultra marathon, but yeah, I'm with you on that part. I finished a revitalization about 6 years ago, and I think I'm still tired from that revitalization. So that's a great segue. There's a wall that happens in our leadership in revitalization that, if we're not careful, we'll run into a wall when we don't have enough trust. Today we want to talk with you about building trust in a church revitalization context. So just a couple of questions, Sam. Thanks for your expertise and sharing it with us. And by the way, everyone, the book Church Revitalization Checklist should be on your shelf. It's incredibly helpful. We'll put it in the show notes where you can buy it easily and quickly. It's a great resource. Sam, why is trust, pastoral trust, so important in a revitalization context?
Yeah, let's talk about what trust is. Trust is based on reliability, confidence, and truthfulness. So, where does trust even come from? Well, this person is reliable, so I trust them. This person is truthful, so I trust them. And they're confident in what they're doing,
Right.
so I trust them. Pastors have to exhibit those three traits. The problem is you can't just walk in day one at a church and people know you're reliable and truthful. They may see your confidence. They may see your confidence day one.
Right.
But reliability and truthfulness, you have to show that over time.
Yeah.
That's the only way to show those things. So the expectation of trust day one is an unreasonable expectation.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of pastors get
unrealistic. Yeah.
I think that pastors get frustrated. It's like, my church doesn't trust me. Well, of course they don't trust you. You've been there 1 month. Nobody should trust you. They may respect you. They may listen to you.
Right.
They may do what you tell them to do. That doesn't mean they trust you. So this concept is an extraordinarily important one. And I'm very glad that you are doing a whole podcast on it, because I think a lot of people expect trust too early and give up too early before they get it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then the church gets into the cycle of before the pastor is even fully trusted, something happens and he leaves, and another pastor comes in, and it's just that perpetuating problem. So one of the things I was thinking about the other day while I was driving, do a lot of driving, a lot of thinking. There's really three kind of pastors who step into a revitalization context. It's the rookie pastor, first senior pastorate stepping in. Two, it is a pastor who has been at his church for a season and then all of a sudden has this awakening and says, oh, wow, I need to revitalize my church, I need to work on revitalization. And the third is someone who has been a senior pastor before and he's stepping into a new church. All three of those have kind of their uniquenesses, but what I find is that category 1 and category 3 really struggle. The first, there's a new podcast which has been launched by some guys that were in PAVE. It's called the Rookie Pastor Podcast. So they're dealing with those type issues where revitalization, a pastor steps in, sees the church needs to be revitalized, starts leading really quickly, leading change quickly because he believes that just the position of pastor should bring credibility. That third category I also find is troublesome because a pastor has gained great trust, respect, has shown his Christian integrity at a previous context, but steps into a new church and forgets he's at ground zero, right? He's got to rebuild trust. So, and in category 2, they have a lot of trust and they can do a lot. So let's talk about categories 1 and 3. Let's circle back. So why is trust so important? We talked a little bit about what trust is, but why is it so important?
Yeah, because ultimately people will not allow you to exercise authority, particularly in a church, in a congregational church, right? I mean, you can force things on people if you have what's called legitimate power or positional power,
Right.
where I'm your boss, just do what I tell you to do, and you just kind of have to do it. Certain ecclesiological structures kind of allow for that a little bit. But in our context, in the Baptist world, most Baptist churches are congregational. So trust is important because ultimately people are not going to grant you authority and true authority until you are trusted, nor should they. Now, some people hang on to, so the flip side of this is, I'm sure there's pastors listening to this and they've gone, well, I served 5 years in a church and the people never allowed me to do anything. And, they're just a bunch of curmudgeons. And sure, that exists too. Those are tough cases as well. But if you genuinely want to start accomplishing a vision where people trust you in that vision, it takes time. And again, it gets back to this idea of reliability and truthfulness. You have to show yourself reliable. You have to show yourself truthful so that people will trust you. And in doing so, then they are granting you authority. And again, this is another misperception of leadership. Ultimately, leadership is a gift from followers.
Right.
It's a gift given. And they're not going to give that gift until they know you and understand you and trust you. So if you view leadership like, wow, I'm blessed to lead these people, to shepherd them, but this is a gift that has been given to me from them. Now it kind of changes your perspective a little bit. Now we're talking about the relational side as well, with like love that's also built into trust. When people love you, they're more inclined to trust you.
Yeah.
Those two things can be separate. There's plenty of people we love that we don't trust. And you're like,
Sure.
I got family members. I love them
That's
deeply,
right.
but I wouldn't trust them with.
We
But
all have that uncle. We all have that uncle.
yeah. But you add love with trust. Now we're really getting somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's just something that takes time. And unfortunately, it takes longer than what most people want.
Yeah. How long does it take? I know that's kind of a loaded question, but how long does it take? So in our society, pastors used to be viewed like we were one of the tip of the spear as far as trust is concerned, but now it's not that way any longer. Our trust level across the board has dropped significantly the last 10 years. So how long does it take to build trust?
Well, scientifically, it depends. That's
Right.
what I'll say.
That's great.
So, it's typically about 5 years. If you're just saying normal church, normal people, normal kind of stuck, normal kind of revitalization,
Right.
where, hey, you're going to get through this, you're going to have some pain, but just give it some time and you're going to be okay. So let's assume all factors equal, about 5 years. That's just my experienced guess. I've been doing this, I've been doing research and serving churches now for over 20 years. So that's just kind of my, finger to the wind. It's roughly 5 years, but there's some exceptions. You lead through a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
You lead through a hurricane that takes back-to-back hurricanes that hits your community directly, and you're out there with a chainsaw.
Yeah.
That's why I'm using this example. You as a pastor grab a chainsaw and get out there side by side with your own people, cutting trees and saving neighbors and getting on boats and doing boat rescues and going in with the police department, with the first in team.
Right.
Now all of a sudden you've gained years of trust, right?
Yeah.
Through that one crisis. So do people even really trust you until you've led them through a crisis? Now I don't know how to answer that question. I'm just posing the question.
Right.
But certainly if you're 2 years in, 3 years in, and you're like, man, I got a couple more years before these people really trust me. No, if you don't waste a crisis, right? And I hate to say that because I would never wish a crisis upon anyone. I would never wish, a church being burned down like in California, or a flood affecting you like in North Carolina, or in our case, a hurricane. Goodness, we don't want those things to happen. But man, if you're sitting in your home watching YouTube while the crisis is going on, it doesn't mean you're going to get fired. But man, you're not doing what you should be doing. You need to get out there with the chainsaw and just go cut with your people. You say, I don't know how to use a chainsaw. Great, it's a learning opportunity. You go talk to people who are doing it. Get out there on the front lines. And when you're out there on the front lines with whatever it is, it could be a family crisis. It may not be a natural disaster. It could be a family crisis. It could be a crisis in the community. A teenager dies in a car accident, the star football player, whatever. Go, just go be there.
Yeah.
That's when you start to build trust more quickly, is when you're on the front lines of a crisis. And that's ministry. That's shepherding, by the way.
That's right.
Everyone thinks you can lead with vision. No, don't lead with vision. Lead relationally. Lead by loving. Lead by being there. Lead through the crises. And the vision will come. Then people will trust you with like, okay, you want to change the vision statement. Okay, you want to kind of direct us in this sort of direction for a ministry. Man, where you earn the ability to do that is on the front lines of a crisis.
Right. And that crisis can be not only, as you alluded to briefly, not only a church-wide crisis, but just an individual person's crisis, right? And so regardless of the size of your church, how small or how large, you need to show up in the lives of your people when there's a death, when there's a wedding, not only the bad times, but the joyous times, right? When a family is struggling, when there's that house fire that an individual in the church has, you show up. So Covey says that the speed of change is equal to the speed of trust. And so, and then, trust is mostly gained through relationship. It's gained through, I just remember being at the bedside literally this one woman who, in the past, I've been a singer and musician, and she asked me months before she died if I would be with her and sing to her when she was dying, and I sang her into glory. And you know what? That family is forever connected. We will have this special bond forever because of just that simple act. So, Pastor, it is gained relationally. And I fully agree. 5 years bare minimum until you're probably going to be fully trusted by your congregation. But most pastors walk in and their idea is 6 months to a year. I'll be ready to lead whatever I need to lead because I'll be trusted. That may have been true in the 50s. I'm not sure if it was true in the 50s. When I was in seminary in the 90s, we were talking about 3 years, but now I think a minimum of 5 is right on. So let's give them some, we talk about in PAVE, if you've been to a PAVE training, you're in a PAVE cohort, you know that we talk about PAVE is not cohorts of learning so much. These are cohorts of practicing. We want to show you how to get the things done. So we're going to play a game, Sam Rayner, to close this thing out. We want to give them some practical ideas to increase trust. It's going to be rapid fire, back and forth. We'll see how many we can get out in the next 4 minutes. Ready, set, I'm going to go first. So again, what are some practical tips to increase trust? Number one, we just talked about it. I live by this phrase, just show up. Some horrific things are going to happen in the lives of your members. Sometimes you're going to show up and you're not going to have any idea what to say. That's okay. In the ministry of Jesus, he didn't always say a lot. He didn't always do a lot, but Jesus was present. Just show up. Sam?
Yeah, one, I'll just piggyback on that a little bit. Those milestones in people's lives are very important. So the birth of the baby, the death of a parent, whatever if it's a milestone for the family, the pastor needs to be there.
That's great.
At least a phone call. At least, yeah. And I will add gift giving. So that's going to be one for me. Okay. So just an example, part of being hit by a hurricane, our beloved Tropicana field got its roof ripped off in Hurricane Milton. And I went around and collected as many pieces of the roof as I could. I know there are a handful of mega baseball fans in my church. So what I did is I had them all cut up and framed and labeled, and I gave some select people who are huge baseball fans a piece of Tropicana Field, and to see their faces, one, just the pastor was thinking of me. Yeah. And then two, that clever sort of gift giving idea. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It could just be a handwritten note. It could be, hey, I know that you like this kind of chocolate or whatever it is. I think gift giving is a very underrated way to go. And there are many people who that's their love language. It's not everyone's love language, but there's enough people where you're gonna hit some home runs with a really simple gift.
Yeah, home run, bump. Just as a quick side note, I was at the Astrodome this very last day. I have an armrest from the Astrodome that was broken and fell on the floor, and I took it. Okay, next. Pastor, arrive early. Arrive to the church 2 hours before Bible study begins, because once your people get there, it is relationship time. That's what Sunday morning is. Not only are you preaching God's word, but maximize on relationship time. Next, Sam.
I think phone calls are important. I try to make at least 3 or 4 phone calls a week.
Yep.
And then I also try to have people in my home. Not everyone is able to come over for dinner or whatever. Sure. Just the invite alone sometimes is enough. And we'll do that at some point. Can't come this week, but just whenever I hear, I'll hear rumors. I hear rumors about church members. Whatever it may be. Hey, I heard your daughter made regionals, in the basketball tournament.
Right.
I'll text him. Texting is a good way to go too. Text him, I'll call him, and just reach out and say, hey, is this true? I heard a rumor. And usually it's like a fun sort of thing. But that level of communication with your people shows that you're thinking of them.
Yes.
And when they feel that their pastor is taking the initiative to think of them, even if it's just a simple text, hey, praying for you, heard this happened. Yeah. Do you need anything? Those are really important communication bits that over time add up to a lot of trust.
Yeah, you're adding just some more coins to their trust bucket, to think of it that way. Okay, I got the next one. So shout out to my friend, Pastor Larry York, who planted a church in the Woodlands, Texas, and it grew to about 1,300 people. Congratulations on your retirement. Pastor Larry York, kind of what you're talking about, he called every church member on their birthday. If it was their first birthday, their 50th, their, whatever it was, he called every person on their birthday and just said, "This is Pastor Larry. I hope you have a great birthday. We love you. We're praying for you. We appreciate you. We're here for you." And how simple is that? And if he could do it with a church of 1,200, you can do it with a church of 50, 100, 200. That's something that's possible. Okay, you're up.
Let's move out of the relational and into the strategic.
Okay.
Particular early on, those first 5 years, focus on the low-hanging fruit. I realize there's like sometimes where you go into a church and you're like, well, we're going to have to blow this thing up because it's going to blow up anyway, and we got to just deal with this stuff. But most established churches are relatively stable. They have their issues, but they're relatively stable. So part of trust is showing that you know what you're doing. This gets back to that reliability side of things. Right. Just because you're truthful doesn't mean you're reliable. So focus on the low-hanging fruit. Have a string of small victories that people can begin to go, he knows what he's talking about. Like, okay, He actually knows what he's doing. And if you there's many things that when you walk into a church, you can, I know this is going to be a win. I just know it is because everyone's talking about it. Yep. Do those things early on. Get several victories, even if they're small victories, under your belt. And then you're ready for some bigger stuff. Because if you have a string of failures, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't even mean you're a bad leader. It just means that you've really set yourself back with that trust level. You're going to fail. There are things that are going to happen. There are going to be times when you're like, that was a really bad decision. Nobody bats 1,000. But particularly early on, before you have full trust, try to put together strategically as many small victories as you can so that people can begin to believe what they want to believe about you, which is, my pastor knows what he's doing.
That's great. I'm going to piggyback off that for the next one. Dr. Paul Powell, God rest his soul, in a book called Getting the Lead Out of Leadership, he said, simply do things that will make your church proud. So that might mean, hey, all those dead bushes need to come out and plant some fresh stuff in it. Be sure that the exterior looks good. Be sure that the church smells good. Paint an area that everyone knows looks terrible. What are some non-controversial, simple wins, low-hanging fruit? Do those. I'll add another one, and then I'll give you the last one. Pastor, show up to every meeting 10 minutes early. Be the first person in the room for every meeting. Be on time. Be consistent about being on time, because our daddies told us, if you're on time, you're late, right? So be there early, be the first person in the room, and you'll show your congregation that you value them and you value their time. You got the last one, Sam.
Yeah, you've just really convicted me because I'm like notorious for walking into a meeting that I arranged with like 30 seconds to spare. So like I operate with too little margin in my life, but we can do a whole nother episode on that.
Sure.
I fail miserably there. But I do agree with you. I totally agree with you. Okay, last one. Gain the trust of community leaders, and you'll gain the trust of your people as well. So not the call to pastor a church is the call to pastor a community. You are not just
say it again. Say it again.
The call to pastor a church is the call to pastor a community. So not only do you need the trust of your own people, you need the trust of the community, and especially the community leaders. Even if they disagree with you, they may have a completely different belief system. You may have a different political bent. That doesn't matter. That you still need to have that bridge of trust with them. You can disagree with someone and trust them.
Sure.
You can come at something from a completely different angle and still trust that person. So I would say a key part of gaining long-term trust in a church to where it's like deeply entrenched will never happen until you gain the trust of the community as well.
I think that was 10 points. Those are some helpful points. So let's kind of recap. Pastor, trust is an integral part of any pastoring situation, especially in church revitalization, where the morale of the church might be low when you first step in, or the morale of the church is low because maybe the church has been in decline for a while. So anytime you're entering into a revitalization phase, if it's just because you've stepped in or you've been there for a while, it is time to up your game in the trust factor. Do everything that you can to increase your trust. Know that trust is a gift. It's something that God has given to us. We have to steward it. It will take time, and build those simple integrity credits with people along the way. And hopefully there's been a couple of tips here that have been helpful to you. So Sam, when is the next, did you see alligators when you're running? I mean, you said, is that a thing?
No, at the time of this recording, no, I ran my race in early February.
Okay.
So in Florida, all of the critters kind of go into I forget the name of it. It's hibernation basically, but it's not called hibernation. So the alligators are pretty much stagnant, as are most of the bugs and snakes. I did see a coral snake, but that's about it on the run. So I would not be in this mess of the Florida swamps in like August. That's suicide. Like there's a reason the race is in like late January, early February.
Hilarious.
You do not need to be out there, on your own in the summertime.
That's hilarious. Well, it is. There's some alligator parts of Texas too. So along the coast, we have some alligator stuff as well there. Well, Sam, thanks for joining us today. Listen, Sam is also not only the president of Church Answers, but also has a great podcast that he and his dad lead together. Tell us a little bit about that as we're finishing up today.
Yeah, Rainer on Leadership. Just Google it and it'll pop up. We've been doing the podcast quite a long time. We combined our EST. For those of you who listen to EST, you may be kind of familiar with that. I've combined both of those podcasts into one. So now we have double the content, double the fun every week. And it's free. It's free. Our sponsors help us provide free content. And our ministry partners help us do that as well. And Jonathan among them. We're very, very grateful for Texas Baptist and all that you guys are doing. We have been thrilled to have a partnership with you because we really believe in what you're doing. So for our listeners, just know if you're part of their tribe, you are in a very good tribe. And if you're not part of their tribe, you should join.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. That's very kind of you to say. Well, Sam, thanks for joining us. Everyone, thanks for listening to the Pave Podcast. You can learn more about the ministries at Texas Baptist by going to our website, txb.org. That's txb.org. You can find more information about PAVE, the Texas Baptist Church Health, Growth, and Revitalization Strategy, by going to txb.org/PAVE. That's txb.org/PAVE. Sam, have a good run this afternoon. We appreciate your time, buddy.
Thank you.